Welcome back to the Lucid Fitness Podcast. I'm Erik and this is Sarah, and this is episode 2 of our Psychology of a Fit Person, where we talk about the trials and tribulations that we personally experienced going through our fitness and wellness journey. Last episode, we talked about our childhood and our kind of the influence that our parents and our lifestyles as children led into where we are now in terms of our journey. And this week I wanted to talk more about the more immediate steps that we took leading up to the first time we were in a gym, because I find that a lot of people have experience working out at home, or they did something one time in high school, or they had an interest in fitness before and they just never really pulled the trigger. And I wanted to talk more about leading up to the getting in the gym and the first time in our gym.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. And if you haven't caught that first episode, it'll be right over there in the little eye thing.
Great. And so I guess I can kind of start with my own journey, and without going into more of the details of when I was a child, talk more about when I really started taking fitness as an actual thing, as opposed to just kind of living an active lifestyle as a child. For me, it was largely the first time in the gym in high school. I kind of don't really count because I didn't really understand fitness as a thing, right? I understood that working out made you stronger and the small elements like that, but it wasn't until later in my life, after high school, where I really started looking at fitness as something that I wanted to do in order to, improve my aesthetics and improve my strength and, my manlyhood, so to speak. And so when I went off to college is when I first started, like, here and there working out, like doing, body weight stuff, push-ups, pull-ups. I went to the gym occasionally, but it was nothing notable. Like, I wouldn't even say I was really going to the gym. It was more like I was hanging out with people while at the gym and, kind of, teenager type stuff with the gym there. But in my early 20s, starting around like 22, 23, I started looking at this as like something that could be, done for me, something that, like, if I put in the work, that I could realistically look better. And, it always stuck in my mind. And I think for a lot of men, it sticks in your mind when you see somebody who's muscular, right? Mm-hmm. Like in high school, it kind of registers more as like just, oh, this is a bigger kid, or, oh, this is a smaller kid. But once you start growing up, I think you start realizing like you have more and more control over how you look and how you, by extension, how you feel. And I think in my early 20s, I started to kind of connect a lot of those dots. And that's when I really started. I remember being in my apartment complex. I lived with one of my buddies, Andy. And I remember buying like 2 20-pound dumbbells, and then doing like a bunch of different variations of push-ups and a lot of curls, but never any triceps. I don't remember. I did pull-ups here and there, but I didn't have like a pull-up bar or anything like that. So mostly just push-ups and biceps. And I remember one day, actually, Andy came home, and this was probably the first time someone was like, dang, you're looking big, like, kind of thing. But I was like 150 pounds. I had just been doing like biceps in the house for a few months. And I think that probably played him saying that probably played a critical role in, my decision to continuously take it more and more seriously. And that's why we at Lucid Fitness now, knowing the importance of these positive feedback loops, these are the types of things that keep you going, right? And, maybe neither him nor I realized the implication of what he was doing at that time, but he was reinforcing the behavior that I had started. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more I did this at-home stuff, the more, attention I got for doing it. And when you're somebody who's always like naturally small to begin with, I was at this point I was starting to, sprout up height wise because it was after college, but I was still skinny. I'd always been skinny, and a lot of my family members are skinny.
You guys are
But
very lithe. Like you have your whole family is a very lithe, slender,
yeah,
built. Yeah.
yeah. And it ended up, it played in my favor in the beginning because I feel like when you're lean, muscle shows on your frame like a lot
Yeah.
quicker, right? Like if I was obese at the time or even overweight, maybe the push-ups and the bicep curls wouldn't have had such a significant, aesthetic change.
Yeah.
But because I was naturally like just skinny. I wouldn't even say lean because back then I didn't really have like a significant amount of muscle mass. But I remember vividly, right? Like I remember vividly starting because the girl I liked's ex-boyfriend was jacked, and so I was like, in order to get her attention, I had to be jacked. And so in order for me to get jacked, like the internet was around, but it wasn't as evolved for like the fitness and
Oh, yeah, it's
nutrition world
totally
as now.
different
Yeah,
space.
it was a lot different. Like you really had to like scry places to find like legitimate information. And like most people, when they first start, you're kind of like stubborn, like, oh, I know what to do, right? Like I did push-ups in high school. Like every gym session I ever did in high school had push-ups and shoulder rolls, and like everybody kind of knows how to do bicep curls. But yeah, those little things of starting in my home really started sinking in that, like, okay, I have more control over my, not necessarily my genetics, but I have more control over my aesthetics and how I appear on the outside, right? And this was before, back then I was like eating fast food. This was before nutrition was it. I didn't take nutrition seriously for another several years after.
Oh, okay.
At this point, like I understood like I needed to eat to grow, but even things like protein, I don't really remember having any specific. Yeah, I mean, I loosely understood, but I don't think I really understood the importance of protein and balancing macronutrients, and even definitely didn't understand micronutrients. Like, yeah, that's for old people type of thing. Like, I definitely had a very stubborn mentality when I started, and I think a lot of people do, because it's honestly like it's kind of easy to get started and just like start moving your body more.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of not necessarily false confidence, but there's a lot of like initial confidence when you do start taking control of things. Like I almost, in most people I see, like they almost immediately start feeling confident because they're regaining that control over their life and their health, and they're, even if it's like just doing push-ups and bicep curls and listening to Akon in my apartment complex, like those things are, to me, like critical moments in
Yeah.
my journey for
Yeah.
sure.
Did you have, when you started, did you have like a certain aesthetic, like when you were going into that like whole home gym, like did you have like a body frame where you're like, oh, those calisthenic guys, they're really cool, I like what they're doing? Or did you say like bodybuilder guys, you're like, oh, they're really cool, I like what they're like? Did you have like a certain vision in mind, and has that changed?
Yeah.
Or were you just like, just put muscle on?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't at that time. I don't think bodybuilding was even on my radar. I was like,
Okay.
I had probably a more realistic perspective of, what looks good. And that was just like the people around me. It's like, I see this person, he looks jacked, even though he's probably like 170 pounds, just like like an athlete or something. But I think that and I've talked about this before, a big appeal to me was two people, Brad Pitt in Fight Club, because he was like super lean,
Oh
muscular.
yeah.
I think I've mentioned this to you before. And then the dude from Never Back Down. He was like the blonde dude. It was the fighting movie, like the MMA
Oh yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah,
Like he
yes.
was super lean, very similar body types. Like
That
that was,
very late 90s, early 2000s,
yeah,
lean but not big, like a
yeah,
natural lean.
yeah, like a natural lean. But I think that that was kind of where, because you always kind of focus on people who kind of have similar body types, right? And now that I'm bigger than both of them in those movies, like at that time though, like their body seemed ideal to me because they were like the next level up, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I think that that's a good way to have your goals, is like always aiming for something that's like achievable and the next level up, right? Because even here to take me from where I am now to a professional bodybuilder, that's a significant leap, even more so than when I started to where I am now. And so you kind of have to have this like iterative, perspective.
Micro goals.
Yeah, for sure. And it evolves over time,
Yeah.
right? Like I joke with my brother all the time, because he's caught the fitness itch, but he doesn't want to be big. He doesn't want to be massive. I was like, just wait, it starts with like, oh, you hit 160 and then you look at yourself and it's like, man, 10 more pounds of muscle would look good. And then you hit 170, it's like, oh yeah, 10 more pounds
of muscle
and,
look pretty
granted,
good.
It's not like 100% muscle you're putting on, but you catch this, like you don't realize how much work goes into a specific body type. And that was, eye-opening experience to me, is like, okay, these actors, they're doing something that I'm not, right? And because you're like, okay, I've been doing push-ups and bicep curls for 6 months in my apartment. Why do I not look like these people? Like, why do I not look like these professional actors that are lean as all get? Like, and then you start to get more and more curious, because like in your early mind, you're kind of thinking like, oh, I can achieve this. I just got to do these like basic things, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it is like a basic thing, but there's more to it than just like push-ups and biceps, right? There's a lot more different muscle groups. There's a lot more of value to progressive overload and increasing your weight. It's like, even for these people who are like, in my eyes now, small, smaller, it still takes significant effort and significant like intention to reach that level of, aesthetic, right? Even if it's not an aesthetic I chase now. At the time, it was something that was beyond my ability, like knowledge ability to grasp, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. What was your next step after that? Like when you went from, okay, I'm working out, like, was there a step in between I'm working out at home to I'm getting a gym membership?
There was, and my apartment complex had like a gym, right?
Like one of those micro gyms?
It wasn't like
with
micro.
two treadmills,
Yeah,
and a dumbbell rack.
it definitely
maybe a
wasn't
cable.
much, because I remember having this image of like a gym in my head, and then I'd go there and there'd be like, there was like a Smith machine, a single treadmill, and then like some cables, and then like for whatever reason, a bar for deadlifts. Like there was like a little platform for deadlifts. It was a short period of time where between working out at home to being in that apartment place, maybe even like 3 or 4 months before I was like, yeah, this isn't a real gym. Like even as a novice, I was like, yeah, like this bar isn't free weight. Like everything online's telling me free weights, and there's no free weights here. It was kind of like, and so, I messed around for a while, worked on my bench press on the Smith machine, did deadlifts, learned, started teaching myself deadlifts, because everyone back then, it was like squats and deadlifts. Like you don't even do like other body parts. You just go and sit down. Like I'm making it more extreme than it was.
I remember that.
But it was like, back then, it was like, if you aren't squatting or deadlift, you aren't lifting, right? And we've come a long way since then, and there's still good moves, but I think back then it was like the end all be all, like was squats and deadlifts. And so I was, I learned those things on, a Smith machine, and for whatever reason, they had a free weight barbell for deadlifts. And and so that was a short period of time. I think that I quickly realized that I was being limited by the equipment, and I wasn't experiencing the gym culture at the time, and for whatever reason, I felt compelled to go to the gym, right? Like I felt compelled to join that like community, which I don't think a lot of people necessarily feel that way in the get-go. And I think that's
It can be overwhelming. It can feel daunting.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to fit in with that group.
Right. And I didn't really, it was probably on my mind of like, not necessarily fitting in, but like making sure I'm not doing anything weird going into the gym.
Okay.
Making sure like I'm having it was more about like having the appropriate etiquette than it was like going there to socialize. Cause I even now, I'm not a big socializer in the gym. I'm pretty, laser focused, but I think there's something around being around other people trying to do that was pulling me to the gym.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't necessarily, it was a combination of things, the not having the equipment. Everyone's telling you deadlift, squat, bench press,
Free weights.
free weights.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have them, right? Yeah. And so when the whole entire culture online's like, just do this, and you don't have that, I think I naturally gravitated towards the gym after a while. But yeah, there was that period of time where, and it's probably a good learning experience and a good like easing me into a gym, because I would occasionally, there'd be other people in this apartment gym, but it was like, I guess they can't see the room, but it wasn't much bigger than this room.
Okay. Well, it like 15 feet by 15 feet.
Yeah, it wasn't a very big room at all. And so, yeah, I mean, for the most part, it was chasing girls and, doing push-ups and bicep curls for a long time.
Okay. Wow.
What about you?
Me? Oh.
Did you work out at home?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In your 20s?
Yes, absolutely. I worked out at home. At that point in time in my life, I was starting to have kids. So it was right before and then intermittently having 4 children. And I remember very specifically at that time, it was all about, do you remember the massive HIIT cardio?
Yeah.
Like everyone was doing at home HIIT cardio workouts, and YouTube wasn't what it is now, and stuff on the internet isn't what it is now. But there was basically 2 female aesthetics in the world, and it was that athlete HIIT girl and bikini model. Like that was the 2 options. Or you're way over here doing, massive man bodybuilding. But that wasn't on my radar. It was like super lean, athletic, HIIT cardio girl and bikini prep girl. And I remember, because thinking back even to when I was younger, I've always had more muscle mass. Like I've always been a fairly muscle dense person, basically since I was like 8, 9, 10. I remember my mom being like, well, you're just built like a gymnast. You're just built like a gymnast. I've always been built like a gymnast, and just always put on muscle mass easily and maintained muscle mass easily, regardless of what my diet was. So I never really fit into those 2 categories, but I very specifically remember wanting to very badly. And so when I was doing at-home workouts, it was those HIIT cardio workouts. It was like an hour and 45 minutes, burn 1,000 calories, in a puddle of sweat on the floor, dying.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
It was rough, for sure. I mean, a part of me still likes that HIIT cardio-ness. Like, I'll do HIIT cardio on the stairs when we do warm-ups in the morning. It's usually my mode of doing things, but it's like, I'm like 15 minutes and I'm done. But I really remember like pushing very hard in those home workouts. And I maybe had 5-10 pound dumbbells, but that was really it. Like I didn't have anything else, and I couldn't go to a gym. And, I was working between, cleaning the house and making dinner and putting this kid down for a nap or putting that kid down for a nap and making sure the house is clean. So I was doing whatever I could to fit into those things. But I remember there was a distinct turn where I really wanted to go to a gym. Like I really, really wanted to go to a gym. And that's when I pushed really hard to have a home gym. And that was a step up. Like I saved money to buy the $900 squat rack and barbells and plates and a bench. And we had... what are they called? The dumbbells that stack that like are
Like the adjustable ones?
yeah, the adjustable ones where you could like turn the switch and it would like be heavier, and then turn the switch and be heavier. I got those, and they went up to like 90 pounds each. And I remember like when things would get stressful, like we talked about in the last podcast, like that's what I would do. Like I would spend all of my time either running with a stroller. So I was running 3, 4, 5 miles a day. That's how I took my kids on a nap. I would, when they were getting tired, I'd buckle them in the stroller, and then their nap hour was my run hour, and then working out. And at that time I was living in Florida. So it was sweat session in the shed out back in the gym. All felt very old school. But I was still chasing that. At that point, it had switched from the very lean, thin athlete girl to, well, maybe I could do like, I want to look like these bikini girls, like more muscle. They had more muscle visually in my mind. I see now, like, there's no way that I would fit into that aesthetic now. And that was well before how broad things are now as far as women's physique. But I distinctly remember, like, that was my goal in my mind. It's like, I will look like this. But that was like kind of off and on again for quite a while, because then there would be times where I'd be pregnant and I'd have to cut back on things, and then the whole healing process, and then having to really feel like I was starting over and over again. And I think that was the hardest part for me in my 20s, was the like wanting to do it and really feeling like I was starting over again and over again and over again.
I think that's normal. But it seems that you kind of follow the fitness culture's evolution, like with your own. And early in, like, I say early, but in recent times, there's been a significant shift from this mindset that you can run your way to like these, like you said, these bikini bodies. Like you can't run and look like that, you know, like runners.
I mean, you'll look like a runner.
Yeah, like runners don't look like that. And so I think that there's been like a conscious shift towards women actually intentionally putting on muscle. Because I think that, you know, for a while there just wasn't really like a global or a central understanding of the fact that women had to put on muscle to look the way they wanted to look. And, the culture has shifted obviously like significantly since then, to the point where like, oh yeah, if I want to look like these people with big butts, I need to work out my butt, because working out, it allows you don't break out of your genetics, but you express your genetics, right? And so until you actually start to work out, you don't know what your body's going to look like until you actually start putting on muscles. And it's the same for women, right? Like I very quickly, once I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I realized I was never going to look like Brad Pitt. And like once you started actually putting on, running and putting on, more muscle, you started realizing like you're never going to look like the bikini pictures. And so you kind of like, you adjust your perspective of what you can actually do based on, genetics, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do think that it is very normal for people to stop and go, especially in the 20s. Like the 20s are such a volatile and like tumultuous point in your life.
Trying to figure out who you are and what you want and what you're supposed to be doing versus what you want to do and what you should be doing. And there's a lot coming at you pretty fast. Yeah.
And I think that I had the same breaks. Like my journey isn't perfectly linear as well, but my time from working out at home to getting in the gym, it was very much like 1, 2, 3. But then once I was in the gym, and we'll talk about this more on the next episode, it was that like, I call it like binge lifting, where you lift hard, you're taking it seriously. Like it's not a joke to you in the most part, but you stop and start, right? Because, either work gets busy or, you're spending more time. For me, it was like playing video games. Whenever, a new video game come out, I'd stop lifting for, weeks. And then I'd be like, oh man, I feel like trash. And then you get back
Start doing it again.
But it seems like you had a very similar experience before, not necessarily by choice, but more by necessity, having the kids, right?
Yeah, iterative at that time. And then and it's much more linear after the point. But I do remember that kind of just start stopping, restart, restopping. And then every time I would come back to it, there would be like a new thing, it was the next new thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like now we've come to a different place, but now it's been almost 10 years since that. But it would be like, oh, it's the HIIT cardio girls, and then it was the running girl, and then it's the Pilates girl, and then it's, like there would be, and then there's the muscle mommy, and like it would, every time I came back to it, I was like, oh, there's new information, and there's new things, and everyone's changed their perspective on what toning is.
Right.
And it was like having to restart and relearn and figure out what was the right thing to do. I remember feeling so overwhelmed every time I came back to it. I really like now how much it's evolved. Like you can really find, like you were talking about, when you are expressing your genes, you can't change your genes. You are what you are, but you can become the ultimate of that. But, the fact that it's okay that if you're leaner and smaller, that you're like, oh, these Pilates girlies, they're my girlies. And if you're like me and you're bigger, you got big legs and you put on muscle, you can sneak right into those wellness girlies and have no problem when everyone's cheering you on to put 5 plates on while you're doing your leg press. And you're not stigmatized for being in either one. Everyone can be friends, and you can fit into the group that makes you feel best, instead of it being everyone needs to fit into this group now.
Right. And I think that's a big evolution, is like all of those different things didn't go away. They just we kind of started as a fitness culture, you kind of started understanding that there's like niches, right? There's like different, some people are good at running, some people are good at weightlifting, some people are good at, have this type of body, some people have this type of body. And I think that as a group, I feel like people beyond the beginner, they kind of have come to an understanding of that.
Yeah.
And the blessing of having that variety is also, in my opinion, for the beginners, like very much occurs, right? Because you look at these, there's a lot of value in the information, but the information is so scattered. It's like, well, why are some people, advocates of doing, circuits, but some people are advocates of resting 5 minutes between sets, but some people are advocates of, just
supersets and drop sets.
Right, exactly. And so it starts to get to a point for beginners where they haven't really fleshed out where they fit in yet.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we're trying to do with Lucid Fitness, is helping people hone in on, this is the starting point to get you to where you need to get to, to start realizing what you're good at, or not even necessarily what you're good at, but what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Where's the niche that you not only feel like you fit into, but want to be in? Because obviously, if you're in one and you want to be over here, no one's going to stop you from doing that. But yeah, being able to finally suss out, I mean, it's kind of like being in your 20s again. Going back to the gym is like being in your 20s again. Like you're trying to still figure out, what do I want to do, and what am I supposed to do, and what is it supposed to look like? Like it's a rehashing of a lot of things.
Yeah, and it's overwhelming.
Okay.
Even for somebody, I stopped consuming large amounts of fitness information a long time ago. Once I really started recognizing, and that's what the Lucid principles are built on, is recognizing the trends across all things.
Yeah.
Right. And not everybody lifts weights, but the vast majority of people who take any sort of athletic or, fitness pursuit seriously, they have some sort of resistance training. Yeah. And then once you have resistance training, the vast majority of them apply progressive overload. Mm-hmm. And so once you start taking, routines or practices from all of the different, versions of fitness, you start to see these trends, and, it's undeniable, right? At a certain point, you look at these certain things, it's like, yeah, for protein's good,
Yep,
right?
protein's good,
if you
yeah.
went to an expert in any type of fitness and asked them if protein was good, they would all say yes, right?
Protein's good,
And
yeah.
so like those are really drilling down into the things that are important for any domain of fitness that you choose, and then present them to you, allow the beginner to work on those core principles.
Yeah, build that
that
foundation
Right.
underneath them so
Right.
that they can then start to build the house on top.
Exactly.
That is the house that they want to build, the physique
Right.
that they want to build.
Exactly. And also you you get an opportunity to change your path, right? And like what made me think of this is when you were talking about how you'd stop and go and then there'd be something new to come back to. But it's okay to like shift your, like my goals now are way different than, my goals in the 20s.
Yeah.
Right? And most people's what they want to achieve either with their health or their aesthetics, it changes, right? Like most people that you see in the gym who are 50 plus, why do you think they're in there? They're not in there to look like Brad Pitt. I guarantee you.
Not anymore,
they're trying they're trying to maintain their mobility because there's an importance. There's a heavy importance of resistance training for mobility. They're trying to be healthy. Obviously, most everyone watching this would understand that exercise is good for you and extends your lifespan, not just your lifespan, but your
quality of life.
Yeah, your quality of life going into those later years. And so I think that it's okay to have to change, right? And to try new things and to experiment with new things. But it's also important that when you're starting, you build the foundation so you can change, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you never spend the time to understand macronutrients, micronutrients, and you never spend the time to understand, compound exercise and things like that, transitioning from like one domain in fitness to the other, you'll be able to move, but you're not going to have these underlying principles. And what's going to happen is you get on this new routine and you're not getting results. Yeah. And then you're like, well, this routine's not for me. So you move to the next routine and you don't get results.
That's when you start falling into that trap of believing in 4 weeks you'll have abs, just eat this way for the next 3 days and you'll drop 20 pounds. So like, that's extreme, but you know what I mean? Like everyone's have seen those, and that's a very slippery slope once you start sliding down it, because you're then desperate, and that desperation kind of breeds this like grabbing onto anything you can grab onto to have one taste of success, because you feel like you have to succeed at this thing.
Right. And it's forming a negative feedback loop. Yeah. And so what's happening is you're doing binge fitness and you're trying something, but you're not understanding the underlying principle of like, this thing takes time. And so you're like, oh, well, 3 weeks on this Pilates, I don't look like these Pilates girls. Pilates aren't for me. And you move on and you disregard Pilates for the rest of your life. Right? Yeah. But if you understand like the importance of...
Why did you have to talk to me like that?
Yeah, but if you understand like fitness at a more foundational level and you understand the core principles that we talk about, then you'll understand that 3 weeks of Pilates is only 3 weeks of Pilates, right? I'm not going to look like a Pilates superstar or whatever their high queens are.
Not wrong.
But yeah, I think that it's important to, and it's why we preach the principles so much as a core foundation, is like, honestly, like, I don't care what most people watching this video, if they end up just doing traditional fitness like we do. Like we're largely traditionalists, just eating right, doing some cardio,
lifting heavy
things, right? We're traditionalists in a lot of ways. But if you don't like that traditional lifestyle, then these core principles, they'll roll into the next, whatever your next is, right? But it's all about understanding the core principles first, so you can go into the next one with like a strong foundation, right? Absolutely. And things would have to evolve, like our principle of finding a routine that fits into your life. Like we, as traditional, fitness people, we focus on finding a traditional routine to follow, full body, push-pull legs, things like that. But if you don't like those things, you want to do something circuit related, you can still use that core principle with, some circuit routine.
Yeah.
If you can do that 2 times a week, do that 2 times a week kind of thing. And I think that it's why these like core principles are so important, is because they work on a vast majority of things. Like, I'm sure there's some exotic stuff out there that, kind of blurs the line and, makes things like we, for example, eat meat, right? I'm sure there's some vegan power lifter out there who, will preach that you can get big and strong not eating meat, right? And that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to squeeze everyone who watches our videos into a very specific type of person. We're trying to give a very broad, completely distilled perspective of fitness as a foundation.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So that you have the condensed version, so that you're able to take that and run with it. That's our goal, right? Our goal is for you to take these principles and these ideas and then be able to run with them in the direction that you wish to run. Because we want you to, in theory, we want you to grow out of us. We want you to be able to take this, use it, and go about and be prosperous in what you're doing. That's our main goal. We want you to succeed for the rest of your life and not be stuck in the slippery slope loop of unobtainable fitness.
Yeah, it's a lot like the student-professor relationship. And although like we're not, professors, there's a certain element of like wanting the people you teach to get out from underneath your wing and go and experience, fitness in the frame that you want to experience it. Some people, may want to do triathlon. Some people may just want to be, traditional lifters and live a healthy, long life.
Yeah.
But, it's on us to provide, a foundation for you guys to be able to explore and not produce the negative feedback loops that come from not understanding the underlying ideas, the underlying reason. Well, why is this person so good at triathlons? It's because they found a routine that fits in their life. They found, they are applying progressive overload with their triathlon training. Yes. They're, using compound movements for when they're doing, whatever resistance training triathletes do. Like, they are doing the same things, just with that extra layer of, I guess, variety their domain on top of the underlying foundation, right? Yes. But I think that, in summary, like, for the most part, your journey is your own, right? And that's what we're trying to teach with this episode, is that her and I's 20s in some ways look very similar, but in a lot of ways, like, totally different, right? I wasn't popping out kids, and, I was trying to, like, attract women, and, she's just trying to, resist the things that happen to you when you have children, and, and so at the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't really matter how you get there. It matters that you do get to the realization that fitness and wellness comes from, like, a conscious, intentional effort.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you would love to join our community, we would love to see you over on Discord. We're there. We're in the chat talking to people. We have lots of different channels about fitness, nutrition, random stuff. All of our videos, those core principles we were talking about, are all in the knowledge section. And we would love to see you there. And be sure and like and subscribe. Share if you know somebody who needs to hear something like this. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to go from the home to the gym and it feels overwhelming and daunting. Maybe they could use some words of kindness and wisdom too.